I really love this expansion into the Star Wars universe beyond episodes 1 through 6, which all began with the series Star Wars The Clone Wars, and all this gives a lot more depth to the individual characters and the overall story of the Skywalker saga. Now, the universe has also expanded beyond episode 6 with the release of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, which I have posted reviews for, so you should definitely go check that out. Links will be in the description. But Tales of the Jedi has to do with small, short stories within the Skywalker saga that has to do with Ahsoka Tano and Count Dooku. Now, we've seen plenty of Ahsoka Tano given that she was one of the main characters for Star Wars The Clone Wars series. She was featured in Star Wars Rebels, she made an appearance in both the Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, and she also has her own show coming out soon. I'm not entirely sure about the date, I know it comes out later this year, but we know her relationship with Anakin Skywalker as his Padawan, her role in the Clone Wars, her departure from the Jedi Order, a little bit about what she did after episode 3, like in between that period. This series just offers a little more into her story, letting us know where she was born, how she got discovered as a Force sensitive, some of her training with Anakin Skywalker, and a little bit about what she was doing after Order 66 when she was hiding from the Empire. But what was really fascinating about this show was diving into Count Dooku's story, because you don't really hear a lot about him. If you've only ever watched the movies, you know that Count Dooku appeared in episode 2 with little to no explanation about who he is. You just know that he was a former Jedi and that he's a Sith Lord. That's pretty much it. And then he appears in episode 3 when he fights Obi-Wan and Anakin, but then he dies. So unless you've read about him or watched the Clone Wars series, you don't really know much about his character. They might have shown clips of him as a Jedi, I cannot remember, but primarily in the show he's the leader of the Separatist Alliance and a Sith, but in Tales of the Jedi you get to see 3 short stories about his downfall into the dark side. We've seen before through the story of Anakin and Ahsoka how Palpatine would describe the dogmatic view of the Jedi, but now we get to see Count Dooku's point of view and further showing how the Jedi don't really work, and even though Darth Sidious had a lot to do with it, in a way the Jedi kind of caused their own demise. Now, the Jedi aren't evil in the way the Sith are evil, like they don't go murdering and slaughtering people because they crave power or simply because they feel like it, but what Dooku came to realize is that from the point of view of the people of the Republic, the Jedi are evil in that they serve and act on the whims of the Senate, which speak for the Republic, but they really only benefit the powerful and the wealthy. So whatever legislation the Senate passes, the Jedi essentially enforce. So essentially they serve the Senate, not necessarily the Republic, although from the Jedi point of view, they are serving the Republic because they're serving the leaders of the Republic. But that way it just doesn't work, and Dooku comes to realize that essentially the Jedi are serving corrupt politicians. And while there are gaps in between every episode, it paints a pretty good picture. Like, it makes it very clear as to why Dooku decided to leave the Jedi Order, because they don't listen, they do things their way, and they don't think, hey, maybe there's another way of doing things. They just stick to the Jedi code. In this episode where Windu and Dooku go to retrieve the body of a dead comrade, and Dooku felt like there was something else going on there, but Windu just wants to do what the Council instructs him to do. So Windu and Dooku both find out why their fellow Jedi died, and these actions lead to the death of a senator. But the issue is that Windu speculates. I mean, it's just his belief. Like, there's no clarity, there's no official confirmation on as to why Dooku wasn't given the seat on the council, but Windu believes that Dooku was denied the seat on the council because Windu is the one that stuck to the mission, while Dooku tried to pursue an investigation that wasn't deemed necessary in the eyes of the council. And though it wasn't confirmed, this lets you know where the Jedi stand with the Senate. They are more concerned, from Dooku's point of view, they are more concerned with just sticking to the Jedi way, the Jedi code, following instructions that are given by the Jedi Council and by the Senate, than they are about one of their own being murdered because of a corrupt politician. And I love it. I love seeing things from Dooku's point of view, because you don't see anything that happens before the Phantom Menace, and you don't see anything that happens in between the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. I'm sure you could read about it somewhere. I don't really read Star Wars books. I've read some comics, especially like Darth Vader comics and whatnot, but other than that, you don't really see anything having to do with any of that. Like, there's so much story to tell, or so much potential like stories that you could tell in between that time period. But I think the first 2 episodes of Dooku's story in Tales of the Jedi take place before the Phantom Menace. I'm not entirely sure. I'm almost positive, but I mean, I could be wrong. But the 3rd episode for sure takes place about like simultaneously, because I remember Qui-Gon dying. Therefore, that was when he fought Darth Maul. So it took place then, probably a little after as well. I don't know how much more, because like I guess it time skips a little bit, but it took place during that time. So I love seeing like this time period, like what was going on behind the scenes of all this, like Chosen One and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan discovering that the Sith are still like in existence, like seeing more, learning more about Dooku, who we know nothing about unless you've read about him before. You know nothing about him once you start watching Attack of the Clones. You just know he was once a Jedi, and that's all you know. Ahsoka, on the other hand, the 3 episodes that feature her weren't really that insightful. I mean, they were a little bit, but they weren't as fascinating to me. I mean, you get to see where she was born and somewhat like the traditions of her, like, you know, people. I think it's called Togruta. I don't know how you say it, but yeah, the people, like where she's from, you get to see their traditions and like what they do when the babies are born, etc., etc. You get to see her training with Anakin, which we already know she did, but you get to see her training with clone troopers as opposed to droids, which they make clear that's what every other Jedi does. They train with droids. However, she trains with clones so that she's prepared for anything, which provides some insight as to how she survived Order 66, because even though Rex was kind of like trying to fight against it, all the other Jedi died. Most Jedi that were ambushed by clones died. All these experienced masters, people that sat on the Jedi Council, they all died, but Ahsoka lived, and that is probably why. And the 3rd episode that features Ahsoka lets us know how powerful, again, that Ahsoka is. Now, she's not Anakin Skywalker, she's not Mace Windu, she's not Yoda, she's not any of those people, but she struck down a Sith Inquisitor with ease by using his own lightsaber against him, and she did it very quickly. Now, it's unclear to me how much she's been training and how much she learned in between, like when she left the Jedi Order and when she returns in season 7 of the Clone Wars, and like the gap in between the end of that and episode, I think 6 of Tales of the Jedi, because she's in hiding from the Empire. I don't know how much she learned, but I'm assuming she's at least equal to the same Ahsoka that fought Darth Maul and beat him. Now, some people might argue that maybe Darth Maul was just taking it easy on her. They find it hard to believe that Darth Maul, out of all people, would lose to Ahsoka. But Ahsoka's no chump. So, I mean, I guess you could argue that Darth Maul is a very powerful Sith. He's a very powerful Force user, but Ahsoka learned from Anakin Skywalker. She was heavily involved in the Clone Wars. Like, she's a seasoned veteran of the Clone Wars, so it's no surprise that she would actually be able to defeat him. But yeah, this just shows us again that Ahsoka is no joke. Like, she is a very powerful Jedi, or at least, I mean, she used to be a Jedi, but a very powerful Force user. And we see her again in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, and I did not like her portrayal right there. So hopefully, like, when the Ahsoka series comes out, they portray her a little bit better, and the lightsaber like action sequences are a lot better, because those were horrible. But yeah, it was great seeing Ahsoka again, even though I wasn't too fascinated with her story. I was mostly like enthralled with Dooku's, like, not origins, but like how he came to be in the dark side and the problems that he had with the Jedi that we don't see in episodes 1 or 2. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Hopefully they renew for a 2nd season, because I love these stories that you don't really have to dedicate a lot of your time to. You can just watch 15 minutes and learn more about a character that you might like in Star Wars, or maybe one you haven't heard of before, or you can find out about somebody's past, or what they were doing in between episodes like 1 through 6, before Phantom Menace, after Return of the Jedi. And something I would really like to see is a Star Wars What If series, where we can see what would have happened if Obi-Wan didn't beat Anakin, if Anakin never became Darth Vader, if Yoda never beat Sidious. Like, there's endless possibilities with that, so hopefully they come out with something like that. I think they have something like that for Marvel. I don't know, I don't watch any of those series, but I think I've seen it on Disney Plus. But I would love to see something like that for Star Wars. But hey, Love this show. Hopefully they come out with a second season. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you enjoyed it, I know I did. And please hit that like button. It helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you have not already. And I will catch you in the next video. See you then. Bye-bye.